Good morning. Today, Levi and I are going to read Crime Biters. My dog is better than your dog. But I don't think my dog's better than your dog because I think every dog is probably pretty great. So, Levi, you can go off and get ready to listen. Thank you. And I will get ready to read. This book is a series, Crime Biters. It's the first in this series. There are 4. It's by Tommy Greenwald. And I'm going to read the back just to give you an idea of what the story is about. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that just because I love crime fighters, vampires, and dogs, made the whole thing about having a crime-fighting vampire dog up. Well, I didn't. It's all true. This story is so crazy that I don't think anybody could have made it up. Not even Elroy Evans, writer of the greatest vampire books ever, or Stanley Murdoch, creator of the greatest police show ever. The truth is that my dog Abby totally won, saved me from my slightly crazy babysitter. 2, helped me become friends with an actual human girl. And 3, stopped evil criminal masterminds in my very own backyard. All right, here we go. Crime Biters. My dog is better than your dog. Profile. Name, Jimmy Bishop, me. Age 11. Occupation, kid. Interests, crime fighters, vampires, dogs, not girls. Stop Police, which is my all-time favorite TV show, by the way, does these cool profiles of all the new characters on every episode. So I thought I'd do it too. It's not like I'm stealing the idea or anything, just paying tribute to it. There's a difference, I think. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that just because I love crime fighters, vampires, and dogs, I made up the whole thing about having a crime-fighting vampire dog. Well, I didn't. It's all true. Here are 3 reasons why you know I'm telling the truth. Reason 1. First of all, if I was going to invent a crime-fighting vampire dog, do you think I would name her Abby? No. I would name her something totally vampire-ish, like Hexamitris. Reason 2. If I made up the part about Abby being a crime-fighting vampire dog, why wouldn't I make up the whole rest of the story? Like, why wouldn't I also just say I was the most popular kid in the whole school? A world champion long-distance runner and extremely, extremely handsome. And reason 3. This story is so crazy that I don't think anybody could have made it up. Not even Elroy Evans, writer of the greatest vampire books ever. Or Stanley Murdoch, creator of the greatest TV show ever. So yeah, what you're about to read is the absolute exact truth, I swear. Part 1, The Blotch. Tuesday, August 26th. I'm one of those kids who likes to stay busy because it helps me forget that I don't have a lot to do. Which makes sense, right? That's why on the morning of August 26th, I wasn't just eating cereal, I was also searching for funny dog videos on the computer. And I was watching YouTube clips of my favorite old TV show, Stop Police. And I was reading a Jonah Forster book, thank goodness, for approximately the 628th time. In other words, Tuesday, August 26th, was a typical summer morning until my sister Misty walked into the kitchen, looked at me, and dropped her phone. Ew, she screamed, Jimmy, you have a huge blotch on your face. Fact, there's never a good time for a blotch to suddenly appear on your face, but sometimes are worse than others. And 8:24 in the morning, 2 days before the first day of 5th grade, is probably just about the worst time of all. By the way, I had no idea what a blotch was. What's a blotch? I asked Misty. A big, disgusting, gross mark, she explained happily. Profile. Name. Misty Bishop. Sister. Age 14. Occupation, texting. Interests, the usual annoying big sister things. All of a sudden, a feeling of panic filled my chest. "Mom!" I called. But then I remembered she wasn't home, as usual. She left really early for work every day and came home late, too. "Dad!" My dad, who was in the TV room, came in and took a look. "Wow," he said. "She's a beaut." He leaned in closer. "And if I'm not mistaken," he added, "it's the exact shape of Rhode Island." Then his phone buzzed. "Sorry, bud. I gotta deal with this." I ran to the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. Ugh! I had no idea what Rhode Island looked like, but it had to be the ugliest state in the entire country. I stood there for about 5 seconds, and then I did what any kid who discovers a Rhode Island-shaped blotch on his face 2 days before 5th grade would do. I screamed. "No!" My sister poked her head in. "Yes," she said, cracking up. Fact. When your older sister looks at you and starts laughing, you know it's not good. 8:47 a.m. I was still staring at myself in the bathroom mirror, wishing there was a hole in the wall I could crawl into, when my dad walked in with a huge smile on his face. "Good news! I got the interview," he announced. "I just called Mom. I've got to be in the city in an hour and a half. Your sister will keep an eye on you today." He scooped me up in his arms and started dancing and singing a made-up song. "We're going to need a babysitter all up in here, 'cause your dad's finally getting things in gear." I tried to be patient, because I knew how badly my dad needed some good news. He'd been looking for a job for almost a year. But after a few more seconds, I decided patience was overrated. "Dad, I won't stop." When he realized how upset I was, he put me down and tried to act upset too, which was like an elephant trying to act small. "Oh, that thing on your face isn't so bad," he said. "It's probably just nerves. A rash of some sort. Since school starts in a couple of days, I bet it will be gone by tonight." "But what if it's not?" I said, starting to cry. My dad looked nervous. I think he was trying to figure out how to deal with a crying son while not being late for his interview. Come on, Jimmy. You need to stay here today and help me get rid of my blotch," I wailed. "Mom's not here. You need to stay." Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he said the one thing he knew would calm me down. "Listen, hey, maybe we should think about getting that dog after all. How about it? What do you say?" I stopped crying. Fact. It's amazing how fast you can stop crying when you hear something that makes you a lot less sad than you were 3 seconds earlier. Another fact, I should probably mention that I've asked my parents for a dog approximately 3,593 times in my life, and every time they've always said the same thing. Now's not a good time. Well, as it turned out, throwing a tantrum because there's a gross mark on your face while your dad is trying to leave so he can get hired for a job is a really good time. For real? A dog? I puffed out my cheeks so my blotch seemed even bigger. "But what about you and Mom saying it's too much work and everyone's too busy and Mom not wanting her rugs to get ruined and all that other stuff you always bring up when I ask for a dog?" My dad sighed. For a minute I thought he was going to take it back, but he didn't. "Yeah, well, we'll figure it out. When I get back from the city, we'll go to the shelter." "When will you be back?" "A few hours, but I have to leave now. Deal?" "Deal." I hugged my dad, he hugged me back, and then said, "Gotta go," and ran out the door. I stood there staring at my blotch in the mirror, and suddenly it didn't look that horrible. Don't get me wrong, it still looked horrible, just not that horrible. 10:13 a.m. My mom called. We had pretty much our usual conversation with a few new twists. Hi, honey. What are you doing? Not much. What's your sister doing? I don't know. Are you outside? No. Why not? It's a beautiful day. I don't feel like it. Go outside, Jimmy. If you really cared about me being outside, you'd be here to make sure I went outside. Jimmy, you're being ridiculous. You know I have to work. Stop trying to make me feel guilty about it. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty about it. A brief pause as we try not to get in a fight. Fine. So what are you doing? Nothing. Are you watching Stop Police? Maybe. Stop watching so much TV. It's a really good episode. You need to be with people. I don't really like that many people. What about Erwin? Why don't you invite Erwin over? Maybe later. Well, you need to go out and get some fresh air. I will, Mom. Hey, did you hear? We're getting a dog. New twist. I heard. Dad told me. Isn't that awesome? I guess. You don't sound like you think it's awesome. Well, I was a little surprised. He should have asked me first. That's generally how it's done, but I guess it's time. It will be good for you. You need something like this, but you're going to need to be the one to take care of it. I will. We'll see. Your father will help too, since this whole thing was his idea. I think it's because he felt sorry for me because I have a thing on my face. Misty called it a blotch. Another new twist. Right. I heard about that too. I'll take a look tonight. And also, since you're never home and he might get a job. Dad probably thought I needed a pal. Stop trying to make me feel guilty, honey. The blotch better go away before school, Mom. Oh, I'm sure it will. We'll talk later. I'm late for a meeting. Love you. Next time you see me, we'll have a dog. Last new twist. We'll see. Bye. Bye. So, profile. Richard Bishop, father. Age, I forget exactly. Occupation, taking care of my sister and me. Interests, finding a job so that he doesn't have to take care of my sister and me. Profile, Sarah Bishop, mother. Age, she'd rather not talk about it. Occupation, something that involves a big briefcase. Interests, whatever's inside that big briefcase. 12:39 p.m. Ew, Erwin Wonk said, pointing at my face, as we sat on the swing set that we were way too old for. Erwin and I have been friends ever since kindergarten, after discovering that we both like to use potato chips to scrape the ice cream off our ice cream sandwiches. He was a pretty good kid, and we went over to each other's houses a lot. One day we decided to be best friends. I guess because best friend sounds better than only friend. But that was before I had a big blotch on my face. I'm not sure I can be best friends with you anymore, Erwin went on. I mean, look at that thing. First of all, it's called a blotch, I told him, and second of all, I feel lousy enough without you being all mean about it. Why don't you and your lisp go somewhere else? Profile. Erwin Wonk. Age 11. Occupation, talking too much. Picking interests, picking his nose when he thinks no one is looking. Erwin looked hurt, and even though he had insulted me first, I felt a little guilty. He had a pretty bad lisp, which he was embarrassed about. Secretly, I liked his lisp, though, because it sounded really weird and also because it meant he was less likely to find some other kid to be best friends with. I'll take it back, if you take it back, I added. He thought for a second and then nodded. Okay, deal. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about Daisy. My heart immediately made a weird somersault. Daisy Flowers. Fact. You can tell what a girl is like from her name. Daisy had moved into the house directly across from mine at the beginning of the summer, and ever since then Erwin and I had talked a lot about her. But we were both way too scared to actually talk to her. We didn't really talk to any girls, especially ones named Daisy Flowers. You totally like Daisy, Erwin said. Totally do not, I said back. You totally like Daisy. That's a lie. We sat there glaring at each other. The truth was, Erwin and I both liked Daisy Flowers. Let's go over to her house and see if she wants to hang out, Erwin suggested. Maybe later, I said. Erwin stomped his foot. Not later, now. You guys are friends. I want to be friends too. We're not friends, I corrected. You totally are, he insisted. We had one conversation. Well, that's one more than I've had. I sighed. Erwin was really jealous of that conversation, even though it had lasted exactly 8 seconds. One day, when I was outside reading, Daisy came out of her house. She noticed me, stopped, and actually walked over. What are you reading? She'd asked. Things for the Memories by Elroy Evans, I told her. Jonah Forrester gets amnesia and forgets he's a vampire until he bites the nurse who's taking care of him. But then he remembers and saves all the patients from an evil doctor who's taking their kidneys and selling them. That sounds good, Daisy had said. Gross, but good. Well, gotta go. Okay, bye, I'd said. Profile. Daisy Flowers. Age, a perfect 10. Occupation, being perfect. Interests, perfection. Later, when I told Erwin about it, he got really mad. He thought Daisy and I had decided to be friends without him. He wanted to be friends with her, too, and he'd been really annoying about it ever since. Well, I don't care what you do, I'm going over to her house, Erwin was saying now. Yeah, right. Yeah, right yourself. I tried to change the subject. What kind of dog do you think I should get? Do you want to come over tonight and meet him? Erwin shrugged. Sure, maybe. Maybe I'll come over for dinner or something. He loved our selection of ice cream and cookies. It was one of the side benefits of having a dad home to do the shopping instead of a mom. Did you know Hank Barlow has a cool police dog named Justice? I asked Erwin. I think he's a German Shepherd. Jonah Forrester doesn't have a dog, but I bet if he did, it would be a Doberman Pinscher or something like that. Erwin rolled his eyes. What is it with you and Hank Barlow and those stupid Jonah Forrester books? That police show is like 100 years old, and vampires aren't even real. And that's cool that you're getting a dog, but it's dumb to talk about what kind because you're just going to go to the shelter and get whatever's available. He glanced back toward Daisy's house. Come on, let's go over. I was in the middle of deciding whether to yell at him because of his dumb idea to go to Daisy's house, or yell at him because of his mean insults about Hank Barlow and Jonah Forrester, when Misty stuck her head out the front door. Lunch brats, she hollered. Whenever Misty had to babysit me, she was the worst person alive. I think it was because since she hated doing it, she wanted to make sure I was just as miserable as she was. Great, I exclaimed, happy that Misty had saved me from a possibly really embarrassing situation. We were getting ready to go inside when we heard a noise from across the street, the sound of Daisy's front door. Sure enough, out she came, dressed in a bathing suit. A few seconds later, her mom followed, carrying some towels. We stared. I wonder where they're going, Erwin said. Maybe swimming, I said. You two are pathetic, Misty said. Daisy started walking to her car, but before she got in, she looked over at us and gave us a wave. That was all Erwin needed, and he broke into a huge smile. See, I told you, I knew she liked me. Excellent. Just between you and me, when she said excellent, it sounded more like excellent. 4:16 p.m. So, my dad's version of getting home in a few hours was basically 8 hours later. I waited by the front door trying to stay calm. It didn't work. "Where's Dad?" I screamed at Misty, who was blasting music while combing her hair for the 62nd time that day. "How should I know?" she screamed back, turning up the music. "I hate you," I screamed louder. "I hate you more," she screamed loudest. It was kind of a routine we had. 4:56 p.m. Finally, Dad pulled into the driveway, honking his horn. "Get in, we're late." "We're late? We? Where were you?" I asked, but I could tell he was totally distracted. "Dad, stop staring at your phone." "I'm waiting for an important call," he said, which I guess was his version of an apology. Fact. Dad's horrible at apologizing. "About the job?" I asked. "Yeah." On the way to the shelter, neither of us talked for a few minutes. I could tell he was nervous. "So, can I get any dog I want?" I asked. "Sure," said my dad, "as long as it's between 14 and 19 months old and weighs between 25 and 35 pounds. "That's not exactly any dog, Dad," I grumbled as the GPS lady told us to take a left. "Mom talked to somebody at work who's a big-time animal lover," Dad said. "She says we should get a dog who's past the crazy puppy phase, but still young enough to be fun and playful. And size-wise, I don't want one of those tiny, fluffy dogs that movie stars put in their pocketbooks. But I also don't want one of those monster dogs that takes up the entire couch." Those ground rules sounded a little strict to me. What if I wanted to get a dog that was 37 pounds? "But Dad..." "No buts." He turned the radio on and started drumming on the steering wheel. Conversation officially over. 5:06 p.m. When I walked into the Northport Animal Rescue Foundation, otherwise known as Northport ARF, dogs and cats of all shapes and sizes tried to get my attention. It was like a kickball game, and I was the captain, and they were all yelling, "Pick me, pick me." But it wasn't a kickball game. It was real life, and they all wanted me to take them home so they could feel safe and warm and loved. "Look," I yelled, "they're all so cute. I want all of them." Even my dad, who was staring at his phone waiting for it to ring, seemed to be affected by all the cuteness. He actually smiled a few times, but he shook his head. "Nice try, Jimmy. You know the deal. One dog." He pointed at a beagle that was jumping in circles. "And nothing too crazy. We don't want our house ripped to shreds." Fact. If you consider yourself not that popular of a person, go to an animal shelter. You will feel really popular really fast. I noticed a Cocker Spaniel that was wagging its tail and barking. "How about that one?" My dad shook his head again. "I'm not sure I can listen to all that barking all night, and the neighbors would hate us." I soon discovered that my dad, had a reason to turn down pretty much every dog I pointed at or played with. Too big, too small, too hairy, too smelly, too loud, too sleepy, too young, too playful. My dad was too annoying. I knew it. This whole thing was a setup. He'd said we could get a dog only so I would stop whining about my blotch and he could go on his stupid interview. The blotch was still there, by the way, in case you were wondering. I was about to give up when we rounded the last corner of the last room in the whole place and saw this dark, tiny cage in the corner. All I could see were two bright lights shining straight at me. As I walked closer, I realized they weren't lights at all. They were eyes. I ran over to the cage and I looked in. There was a scruffy little dog just lying there. He looked like a combination of 1,000 different breeds. He had spots. He had stripes. His eyes were 2 different colors. His ears were 2 different shapes. And he had a big black streak of fur right down his back, almost like a cape. He was wagging his tail sleepily, and he had the cutest, saddest face I'd ever seen. In other words, he was awesome. I ran over to one of the guys who worked there. "Hi, is this dog available? Is he nice?" The guy nodded. "Oh, she's a bit of a loner, likes to sleep all day, but she's wide awake at night. The doc thinks her eyes are super sensitive to light for some reason. A real sweetheart, though." "Oh, so he was a she. I'd always imagined having a boy dog. Oh well. How old is she?" "About 1.5 years. "How much does she weigh?" The guy scratched his head. "What is this, the 3rd degree?" "I'd say about 30 pounds. "Perfect. Dad, I found her. Dad was still messing around with his phone. "Oh yeah? Come quick." He sighed and walked over to the cage to take a look. After about a minute, he asked the worker guy, "Can you please take her out so we can say hi?" The guy opened the cage and brought the dog over. As I started petting her, she looked right into my eyes. I could swear she was smiling. She seemed sleepy, but she was so cute. She didn't look like any dog I'd ever seen before. "What kind of dog is she?" I asked. "A whole lot of everything," said the guy. "What's her name?" The guy laughed. "Whatever you want it to be." "Let me take a look," my dad said. The guy handed him the dog with no name. My dad stood there for a few seconds, just staring at her. He didn't look very enthusiastic. In fact, he looked like he was reconsidering the whole thing. I started to think that this whole dog thing would never happen. All of a sudden, the dog stretched, pulled her head back, and sneezed right in my dog's face. That's right. You heard me. All of a sudden, the dog stretched, pulled her head back, and sneezed right in my dad's face. That's right, you heard me. Fact, if you're in the middle of adopting a dog, try to make sure it doesn't sneeze in your dad's face. "Blech," my dad said. He scowled as he handed the dog to me, while the worker guy tried not to laugh. "Dad," I said, but I knew it was over. There was no way we were getting this dog. Then my dad's phone rang. He looked at the phone, then he looked at me. "You better get it," I said. As my dad walked off down the hall, I waited there with the dog still in my hands. She was pretty heavy, so I sat down on the floor. "Why did you have to sneeze right then?" I asked her, but she wouldn't answer. Finally, after 3 or 4 long minutes, my dad came back. His eyes were sparkling. "Looks like I got a shot," he said, giving me a big hug. "They want me to come back in tomorrow afternoon to meet some other people. They say I'm the leading candidate." "That's great, Dad." He bent down, stared into the dog's eyes. "Hey, maybe you're a good luck charm after all." Then my dad looked at the guy who worked there. "We'll take her." My heart did a somersault. I couldn't believe it. I was getting a dog. Finally. I gave the dog a big bear hug, or I guess a dog hug. And when she licked me back, I was pretty sure she winked at me. And that was the moment I first started wondering if she had secret powers. Okay, I'm going to take a break, and we'll be back.